Hello everyone, I am Shivam Banka and I'll be going through this management case study interview. The purpose of this video is to give you an understanding of what is expected of you in a management case study interview. And for that reason, this video is divided into two parts. In the first part, I'll be going through the interview line by line and present my understanding of it. And the second part, I'll analyze the interview as a whole and present the overall structure of it. Today we are doing a case study interview where a client is a bank, probably. That is what we can get from the title. Uh, Also for context, all the black text with blue background which you see is the statement of the interviewer, and all the blue text with white background which you see is the statement of the candidate. Let's begin. Your client is a leading public sector bank in India. Recently, it has been experiencing a decline in its profitability. It wants you to analyze why. This seems like an interesting problem. Okay, yeah. First of all, uh, the first statement told by the interviewer is one of the most important statements in a case study interview because it tells you the scope of where exactly you have to focus on. If you don't listen to this carefully, you might start focusing on something else, which is not where what was expected of you, and then whole interview might go to a different direction. Also, from the first statement, we have figured out that it's a leading public sector bank in India, and they have been facing decline in profitability, and we have to figure out why. So this is a typical profitability case study interview, and a typical profitability case study interview is divided into three parts. In the first part, you try to understand more of the client's business and industry, what is competitive scenario, and at the overall level, what is the situation. In the second part, you try to structure the situation to figure out where exactly is the problem coming from. And then third part, which is optional sometimes, is you provide recommendations and solutions to the problems you have identified. So let's see. This seems like an interesting problem. To better understand the proposition, I would want to ask few clarifying questions. Is our objective to reverse the decline in profitability, or is the bank only looking towards assessing the reasons for the decline? Okay. Uh, Not very on the spot question, but it's a good question, not a bad question. The bank wants us to analyze the reasons and suggest avenues for growth. I mentioned it's not a very good question because it's not required, or it will not change your thinking at this point of the stage, because if there are no suggestions needed at the end of the interview, the interviewer might say just thank you and not ask you for suggestions. And if the suggestions are needed at the end of the point where you have figured out the problem, the interviewer will ask you for suggestions. So it's not going to affect the starting of the interview. It's only going to come at the later at the end part of the interview. So this question might not be much relevant at this point of time. But okay. The bank wants us to analyze and suggest avenues for growth. So bank also wants the some suggestions how they can grow. Is it safe to assume that the bank is national, pan-India, and that domestic business is a major arm of the business? Okay, because it's a leading public sector bank, so that is you get from it. That's a fair observation. I am trying to understand the bank's customer base. So am I right in assuming that the bank draws a majority of business from rural banking, but also has a competitive position in urban areas? So since it's a public sector bank, so mostly public sector banks are focused more on rural areas and providing good, better loans and opportunities to the local rural sector of our country. So that's why the candidate has assumed it, but also candidate has asked whether it's safe to assume, which is a very good practice to do rather than assuming it without confirmation. Yes, a majority of banks' business is from rural areas, and in urban areas, it has more muted presence, something it aims to work on. Okay. Since when has the bank been facing the decline in profitability? Also, have the other banks also been facing the similar issues? The bank has been witnessing falling profitability from the past 5 to 6 quarters. Some banks have seen declining profits, but others have seen periods of steady growth. Interesting. So this is a very also good question where you ask whether the bank is at the decline in profitability situation or whether the entire industry in it. So based on what you get a response from the the interviewer, you figure out where how do you want to proceed. So if it's a bank only situation, you try to understand more of the bank's business. If it's industry wide problem, then you try to understand more of external factors, which is government policies and other external things which is outside of banks control, which could have affected the decline if it was an industry wide problem. But yeah, so the bank has been witnessing falling profitability from 5 to 6 quarters. The bank has seen declining some bank have seen declining profits, but other have seen periods of steady growth. So it's not an industry-wide problem; it's mostly bank-specific problem. Interesting. That's a decline of almost a year and a half, with the industry seems to be doing fine. This leads me to hypothesize that is some systemic issue with the bank that probably stems from faulty loan policies, in turn escalating cost. A final clarification. What is the timeline that we are looking to reverse this decline in profitability? So, it's very safe to assume that the issue is from faulty loan policies because that is the major source of income for the bank. But it's also very good practice to clarify with the interviewer, with the candidate has not done at this point, but it's a very good practice to clarify that whether you're going in the right direction or not. So the bank wants to reverse the trend in the next 1 or 2 years. Okay. Given the short timeline, I would like to take two prolonged approach. To increase profitability, we have two possibilities: increase revenue, increase the customer base, and income from advances. And the second would be second, we could look at the cost aspect, maybe target recoveries to decrease the NPAs, reducing the return of assets. Is there something specific you want me to look at? Has there been a substantial decrease in revenues or an increase in cost? So now we are moving to the second part of the interview where we are trying to structure the situation and figure out where exactly is the problem coming from, and that's for profits are divided into revenue and cost, and the candidate asking the interviewer where exactly he wants him to focus on. Yes, the costs have increased, but the revenues have remained more or less constant. Why don't you start by analyzing the revenues? Okay. I think the interviewer wants to see how much of a messy approach or how much exhaustively the candidate can think. Because if the revenues have remained more or less constant, but still the interviewer wants to test the candidate and told him to analyze the revenue side first. Just increase a bit brightness. Yes. As a public sector bank, since inorganic growth is not feasible option, we could explore increasing the um number of customers or the value per customer. Since the agriculture and commercial loans have been high on NPA, the bank could focus on retail assets to grow. That's fair enough. Since it's a public sector bank, it's not a commercial bank, so it cannot focus more on inorganic growth. It can only grow from word of mouth in the rural areas and somewhat in urban areas, but it cannot invest a lot on marketing and such efforts. So yeah, so for that reason, to grow organically, you have to really focus on the number of customers and what value you're providing to the customer, so that the word of mouth becomes very strong. Also, since the agriculture and commercial loans have been high on net performing, have been high on NPS, the bank could focus on retail assets to grow. However, I do realize that the social dimensions, the priority sector lending targets are also to be considered. Okay, that's a fairly good analysis. Could there be a way to utilize the latter since we enjoy a large rural presence? Using its pervasive network, if the bank could tap into the last mile customer and provide a basket of services to the customers whom they have almost exclusive access to, this would help them substantially grow their revenues and also build their brand image. So, one good part is bank have access to a lot of customers in rural areas, and if they provide them good value services, it might help them grow their revenue and increase their brand image. So that is very good. That is a very good suggestion in terms of what a bank could actually do and what the bank could actually benefit from, taking into account what are the strengths of bank and then using it for our advantage. All right, now let's concentrate on retail growth. As you rightly pointed out, is it has the lowest NPA. Uh, in growing the number of customers, the bank could look at our existing market presence and look to expand to newer areas. In the existing market, they would need to analyze whether our products have market visibility. In case that is there, the bank needs to analyze if the channels are accessible. And finally, the bank needs to look at the desirability with other products or other providers. So yeah, I think to figure out how we can have a retail growth, uh, we have to look into certain factors, and it is in terms of what is our current situation and what is our existing presence, and also we can look into what are the new areas we can expand to. If we have a good presence in the existing market, we can analyze whether our products which we are selling has good visibility. In case the bank needs to analyze other channels, so if channels are accessible, and finally the bank also needs to look at other providers. Briefly analyze all. Okay. Awareness could be increased with promotion. In channels, there are two broad categories, physical and digital. In both, the approachability has the hygiene fact and the hygiene factor are important. The approachability looks at aspects such as location and physical branches and accessibility of the sites. The hygiene factors explore the ease of doing business. In the desirability, the bank needs to look at the products and services offered by our competitors, the tie-ups, and the preference of the customers. Exactly. I mean, the candidates structured it pretty well and then broken the problem into different parts, which gives you an overall idea of the answer. In tie-ups, the bank could explore areas such as EMI loans for online shopping, tie-up with real estate agents, education institute, car agencies, travel agencies, and businesses for personal loan for employees. Is there something I should analyze in greater detail, or should I move on to analyzing new markets? No, this is a good analysis. Let's move on to value per customers. So the interviewer is controlling where exactly to focus on rather than the candidate. This is also very good idea to control the interview because you know what points you have as a strong base, and then you try to direct the interview there. But if the interview is smart, you won't be able to do it. In value per customer, since the interest rate is not a variable, we can adjust to a large extent. We could look at increasing the loan amount per customer or cross-selling associated products. Okay. Um, for increasing the loan amount, the bank could sell them other loans. For instance, for someone who has a home loan, the bank could sell them a car loan, etc. And selling associated products, the bank could market insurance and wealth management products to its partners. Good, thanks. That would be all. So that was a pretty, interesting case study interview where the candidate was adopting as the interview was going on rather than following a typical profitability pattern. But the candidate was able to reach out to the figure out the problem and suggest really exhaustive list of solutions to the interviewer. So we'll be moving to the second part of the interview where we'll be analyzing the interview as a whole. It's very important to maintain very clear and crisp notes. So sometimes at the end of the interview, the interviewer might ask you for your notes, and he should be able to understand everything in one glance. Interview notes. banking sector specific costs such as customer acquisition and transaction costs along with NPA should be focused on. Decline is because of higher consumer acquisition as banks still follows traditional banking model. Costs are also on account of high NPAs. Uh, Interest rates generally cannot be changed to increase revenue. Okay, what are the case facts? Leading public sector bank in India, pan-India operations, majority business from rural banking, decline profitable 5 to 6 quarters. Not an industry-wide problem. Okay, let's see what is the approach, which is one of the most important part. Where if you give it a rough sheet to the interviewer, he will to understand how structured thinking you follow. So the profits were divided in revenue and cost. We are able to focus on the revenue side. Revenue is divided number of customers per value and value per customers. Number of customers were divided into existing markets and new market. The problem was in existing market. Existing market was where we were giving loans, which was in corporate, agriculture, and retail. Retail was the one where the problem was. Value per customer is interest rate and number of products. The number of products was suggested to increase and sell, also cross sell different products. So number of products was something we the candidate suggested to target by increasing the products to our existing customers and also cross selling different products to our existing customers. What were the recommendations provided by the candidate was to target retail assets to grow revenues which have minimum NPS, use existing network as leverage to grow. Okay. Increase the number of products as well as the value per customer to drive its growth. Some of the observation and suggestions for the interview is it is important to look at the timelines while making recommendations. Uh, okay, so the client was also looking to have a short-term recommendation. So it's very important to look at those terms as well to provide a very catered recommendation to the client. Sector-specific knowledge such as increasing farm loan waivers in agriculture or rising NPAs in corporate sector can hint where the bank could look for its growth, that is retail. So yeah, that is pretty much covered. So that was pretty much the case study for this video, and hope you guys learned a lot from it. And case study interview coming up. All the best. And if you are looking to build a career in consulting, do subscribe to the channel because I'll be covering a lot of different industries case study interview one by one, and it's a very good habit to watch one video every day for that you need to subscribe so you don't miss out on any video. And thank you for watching.